Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by grants from AFIPS, the American Federation of Information Processing Societies, a nonprofit federation of 11 national societies for computer professionals. AFIPS, Leadership and Service in Computer and Information Technology. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover the latest in microcomputer technology worldwide. Byte, the international standard.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is Gary Kildall. Gary, all these wires and cables and connectors we have here are potentially part of a computer network system, or local area network, LAN as it's sometimes called. And I suppose one of the most important things to happen is the recent IBM announcement about its new token ring network system. Now, networks is one of those things that it seems computer guys have been talking about for years, but from a user's point of view, nothing really ever seems to happen. Is this IBM move now finally going to make things happen in networking?
Software technology that's of interest primarily to people developing software. It's not an end-user product in and of itself that one would want to sell or to... there really isn't much of an AI market except for the tools market, and we're going to see some of the tools here today.
Well, characterize some of these things.
Out of a complete choice of over 16 million colors. And so the artist can create his paint palette much like a...
to provide instant access to legislative activities. Using unique bill tracking software, representatives can watch the progress of legislation.
If you think I'm bad on this thing, you ought to hear me on the piano. I'm one of those people of whom it can honestly be said that they can't carry a tune in the bucket. Besides that, though, I still like TuneSmith PC. Now, I've seen a few music-making programs in my days, but this one really takes the cake. The important difference between TuneSmith and the other music-making programs represents a fundamental dichotomy in the computer business. Do you teach music to programmers, or do you teach programming to musicians? Now, I don't know if John Brink, the author of TuneSmith PC, is a musician or not, but if he isn't, he should be. Let's have a look at the program.
We're not deterred by the last year as far as things being in a slump. It should be good.
Well, joining us now in the studio are a couple of characters.
Gosh, it's never done that before. You know, have you ever stopped to think that each of your $5 floppies has several $1,000s worth of your time and effort on it? And for those of you with hard disks, multiply that by the storage capacity you have. It's frightening to think what would happen if something goes wrong and your disk fails. And it's even more frightening to think that most of you have never thought about it. Well, lucky for you, someone else has been thinking about the unthinkable, and they've come up with Backup, a package also known as intelligent, high-speed backup and restore software.
Received a little over 14,000 telephone calls, and their telephone numbers are not on here. Telephoning was not requested. So, I mean, this is a huge impact.
Right. Now, this immediately leads to...
That MCCC, which means MC cubed, which is going, Einstein won better. He only went MC squared.
The interesting thing is there probably were hurdles and problems. I don't think I realized it until probably about 5 years ago. When I got out of college, the first thing I wanted to do was be a programmer because that was a good field for women, and I never thought of it in terms of discrimination. In 1974, I went into sales for informatics. I was the first female of a 100-person sales force, and I really was in a fishbowl. At this point, a typical high-tech sales force will be about 50-50. At that point, I still hadn't thought in terms of discrimination. As you start getting toward the top, you start realizing that you really have more opportunities if you go off and you start your own company and you start your own thing. At least this is what
People have is trying to define the market for these two machines. I mean, is it a classic game machine? Is it really a business computer? Where do you see these machines being sold? Well, on the side here, you can store, what, 1,600 files, I think it is, on one of their, something like that. How do you manage all that information on the disk?
So I looked through the last couple of seasons of reviews, and I picked the packages that I really like myself, the ones that are daily of the most use to me.
A child's mind.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. One of the things, just in passing, George, you can give Christmas memberships for sure that I know of to the Source, and they'll send a little certificate. And I, in fact, because I gave one 2 years ago as a Christmas gift to a friend of mine, it's
I don't know what the current pricing is, about $100 to join, and probably CompuServe allows the same thing. And for people who aren't yet into bulletin boards and communicating, that's a terrific Christmas gift.
Well, the reason for my comment about
Let me just follow up. Was this a case of kind of bad forecasting or bad management within these companies and not planning ahead and getting overloaded with inventory and so on?
No, I don't.
It's either Gary Claus or Santa Kildall. I'm not sure which. Gary, this is the ultimate high-tech Christmas present for the hacker on your list.
Plus, it has the fastest sort I've ever seen. Catalyst, a truly impressive mailing list program, $250 from Automation Consultants International in Encino, California. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Paul Schindler.
Yes, and there's no question that the majority of third-party software people has seen the value in the computer, and they've also seen that people are going to buy them. And during the time when I was there, before I left, we were selling as many as 300,000 computers a month. And with no question that Camera today has one of the biggest libraries of software available.
Now, but the Commodore 64, the C64, did take some...
Okay, I'm going to use the control panel here. These controls allow me to move the camera around, have it reread something in its memory if I didn't understand it the first time.
Up, so they'll be up in a moment.
So how do you see someone using Deluxe Paint? This is
Peggy has an alternate input device here that I'd like to find out about.
Right. This is a membrane keyboard, and it's plugged into a device. So it's called an adaptive firmware card, and it'll allow us to use the Apple with alternate input devices. And in this case, we've...
What he sees on the screen matches what comes out of the printer. Data-driven business charts, diagrams, even external artwork and photos can be pasted up with aesthetic precision. The secret to the expanding success of the Traveling Micro is its ability to record and provide information on the spot and transmit that data electronically. Writable discs.
The compact disc standard, or CD-ROM, is ideal for pre-recorded databases where you would logically go in sequential fashion. For example, if you're searching a large database, this is an ideal methodology. It is, however, too slow for direct access of computer information, particularly computer software.
Computer art in general, I mean, does this make you feel bad that you're not playing with brushes and cans here, or does it make you feel good?
Half a mega memory, a 68K processor, and a monochrome display. Now that price point must have been a very difficult one to hit. How do you do that? The question that comes up also in programs like this is that how much decision making would be made by the programmer, in the sense that when the program put it together, leads to certain cases that more often than others. Do the investigators actually go back and check and make sure that these were relevant cases?
I mean, the computers don't make the decision.
You can buy and sell, or for the esoteric, there are puts, calls, and options. This is a real-time game with a news ticker and a stock ticker.
Is very, very good.
And what's the resolution of the picture we're looking at?
This is a
520. About this is, watch this deal. It has 40K internal memory and 64K memory cartridges. So you can carry a couple of these around in your pocket, have a lot of storage, and they're coming.
Too small for corporate software, too specialized for canned software, this company has managed to integrate computers in the practical way.
And with the Express 3, she will communicate with you either using a display, or she can type out a message on a printer, or she has speech output as well. And she could...
It seems that optical storage is just taking off now. Now, is optical storage just another small step in storage technology, or is this a giant leap for computers?
Well, I think my bias is
in this environment, or less, or is there any feeling?
There are the equivalent of...
Systems range from about $399 all the way up to about $6,000 for the external subsystems.
Okay.
Alan, what kind of user needs?
By 1989, that figure is expected to grow to over 4 billion pages.
It is essentially a visual database program that lets you store and retrieve information by referencing pictures rather than words or numbers.
But now we have a mechanical device and a floppy disk drive. What's going to happen as far as backup storage?
Well, backup storage, being able to carry...
The Computer Foul-Up of the Week award goes to Mellon Bank in Pittsburgh. A memory disk in the computer which runs its automated teller system failed, and so the computer couldn't recognize any account numbers. Well, when the automatic teller machines can't recognize account numbers, they're programmed to eat up the card and not return it to its user. So for an hour and a half last week, Mellon ATMs all around the city gobbled up about 2,000 bank cards. There were lots of screaming customers, but the bank said everything worked just the way it was supposed to. The computer's instructions are, when in doubt, don't give out the money. Finally, in this wonderful world of high technology with computer analysis of this and that, the people at the Intel plant in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
every aspect of dispatch services, and the San Jose Police Department is among a handful who've taken. A reporter on arriving at work can obtain instantly his assignment, the stories being worked on that day, and any messages waiting for him.
Four was definitely one of those devices that kept the Japanese machines out. No question about that.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to have to take time. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much. Now, there's no question computers are invading the media, the news business in particular. The question is, does that mean there's too much emphasis on technology, too much attention to form, and not enough to substance? Our commentator, Paul Schindler, has some thoughts on that.
What's wrong with this picture? Well, to an old-time journalist like me, what's wrong is there's no longer any clacking teletypes in it, or pounding typewriters, or paste pots and thick pencils. Even broadcasters, who aren't considered real journalists by us print types, are slowly succumbing to the temptation to process their words instead of writing them. Now, I don't want to sound like a nostalgic fogey, and I don't want you to get me wrong. All my commentaries are composed on a word.
Made a flashy entrance in a limousine in the spring of '83, and appeared to be the machine that everyone was waiting for. The company saw an...
Be one of the big advantages of the laser printer over some of the others.
That's correct. Laser printers today have a very high resolution, typically about 300 dots per inch, and that gives us the ability to do very nice artwork and graphics.
But vendors of add-on peripherals, like the hard card, see the slowdown as an opportunity.
That's right, and I think we developed a overcapacity problem. There are over 375 manufacturers. That caused, once demand caught up with supply and the supply outstripped it, we see somewhat of a adjustment period that's going on.
Feature is a young girl as the main figure in the adventure game, and that reminds us right away that in fact most adventure games, most computers...
The idea is that anyone with a personal computer and a modem can dial into the well and have access to hundreds of other people with their knowledge and their information who are also talking to the well with their computer.
Why would I use...
This is an instrument that will be interfaced to a computer to allow us to collect data.
But for a technology that shows such promise from the start, the future is even more remarkable.
But there is a very clear route in optical to...
15,000 hours is the quoted spec, and that's a very reasonable number. Greater than that can be expected.
Bob, we have...
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this is a program to give advice on how to take care of eye problems, but it's aimed at healthcare delivery people in developing countries, the sort of barefoot doctors.
Okay.
These are people who've had very little training. They change frequently.
So and people who are in fact not doctors.
They're not doctors at all, by and large.
Okay, so this is also expert system based.
Joining us now is David...
You get whatever you get.
Okay, and now it's going to pull out the remaining articles that don't talk about that.
Now we see that there are a good deal fewer articles there in the Muppets.
Is the noise most obvious when braking to a stop? Yes, it is. Well, the system has come to a diagnosis of the problem. And the diagnosis is that the brakes may be glazed, the rotors or pads of disc brakes, or the linings of drum brakes should be inspected for glazing or dirt.
Okay. Now here in this particular case is again
a little simple text processor, there's a worksheet, there's a little database manager, telecommunications, calendar function, which is kind of a running to-do list, and an electronic mail system.
Those involved in the test do spend some time at the office. Human interaction.
And, from your perspective, is this good or bad for the industry, this obsession with IBM compatibility?
We found the entire outline point on the growth of PBS. So if you're working on a term paper about PBS, there's the
pretty impressive. In fact, that's an example. Pull back to the outline level at this point, you can see exactly what the whole article looks like in outline form at this point, and go in and say, browse around, find something else.
Bob,
boosts its storage by 10 to 20 megabytes, and enables it to run a number of programs simultaneously.
That's a tremendously easy sell. There's no question about it. It's an incredibly popular unit.
See my problem. I did my totals and my column width wasn't wide enough. Normally I'd have to go back to my worksheet menu and then column width, range, all these things. The problem is I want to make column E wider. With this program I can simply say make column E wider, and it does it. Now this is a very interesting example of...
And so it's more than just a simple branching scheme. It's a really fairly complicated computer program.
Look at the pictures that are being painted on the ELD, which is interesting.
It's very impressive. But now this is a fixed demonstration.
It's a fixed demonstration
okay, we see
of
that.
a space shuttle. And
That's
you
right,
can see the thing being moved around.
You can actually, in your hotel room... Gary Kildall, and the subject is portables. Gary, we're going to be talking about things like transportables and lap portables, but I want to show you this portable over here.
Showing a couple pictures that I have on the disk right now. Let's see, $1's a good one. We can review these pictures, go from one picture to the next in somewhere around 3 seconds.
Amateur counterfeiting, right in front of you.
These are just pictures that we took. These all have 3 levels of gray. Right now we're up to 30.
Gavilan wasn't the first portable computer maker to go under, but it certainly was one of the most expensive failures. More than $31 million in venture capital went into this company during its short life. All of it was lost because Gavilan was a victim of bad timing. Reporting for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Well, a story like that makes me glad I'm in the software business.
Right. There's just, oversupply relative to the available shelf space and to the marketplace, even though the market is, a very strong growing market by any other measure. When you look at an industry growing at 30 to 40%, that's pretty strong growth. But that is down from 80% plus last year, and so there's tremendous oversupply in peripherals and personal computers and across the board.
No, another part of it just
be more standard than this.
Actually, Gary, I think to a large extent, storage is
doing programs or what we call underlay programs that exist before you run your main application. Sidekick happens to be the most popular. As the compact boots, you'll see Sidekick.
Computer. I guess it's like if a new mountain sprung up in the world, all the mountain climbers would rush to it. And there's a new processor out there. You've got to see what it's capable of doing.
But is it?
Now I want to see a report that shows the address and salaries of these people. The "these people" refers back to those sales folks who are earning more than $15,000.
Let's stop for just a second now. Do you feel like an untrained...
Computer sales have been disappointing this year, and many stores have closed their doors for good.
Got Millionaire, which also is especially tailored to take advantage of some of the Mac features, so introduce us to Millionaire.
And several 100,000 constituents, each one with an opinion to express.
Joining us now in the studio is Roger Lee. Roger, about the business applications, I want to know if you can show a red and white soccer ball bouncing. And this is Gary Kildall. Gary, we have up on the computer here an adventure game called Cave Girl Claire that...
I don't think it's a hype at all. I mean, there is a slowdown. There are many firms who are losing money at the moment. Apple Computer shuts down several factories. It lays off thousands of people. And this was once the darling of the personal computer industry. IBM has untold number of machines in inventory. They won't let us know how many. I mean, this is a definite slowdown in the industry.
What do you think is...
It's simple, crystal clear menus guide you through every step you need to save today's work, this week's work, or this year's work.
Computers one step further. All the command officers' squad cars of a network that links offices from San Francisco to Washington is one.
This particular machine, the 520 ST, is an $800 machine, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
It's a learn to use the machine.
You're going to keep the surprise in Christmas, keep them from watching this show before Christmas Day, right?
Okay, Gary, I'm very proud of you. You didn't tell us...
Losses among the 2 largest home computer makers through June of this year surpassed $600 million.
Joining us now is Deborah Wise. Deborah, how complicated is it was it for Sue to learn how to use that device? On and off here with a larger picture than one on the screen.
Let's say I want to add another desk in this office. I go in, select my desk here,
which I have designed before, duplicate it. I want it the other way around, so I go to my Arrange menu and rotate it. I grab the desk, pull it over here, get a chair for the person who's supposed to work there.
Let's just take a look at the home market as distinct from, say, the commercial market. What's happening as far as that home computer market?
Okay, the home
is in the Commodore 64, and of course, it's not oriented toward playing games, but oriented toward learning BASIC. Now, the important thing here is it's got a lot of cartoons and it keeps the interest of the child, and it's only.
This work was done on a Z80-based machine with some external graphic support.
Graphic as an entity, you can pull the whole composite graphic over.
And I can do that again. And this way I already have my org chart more or less designed.
It takes a video signal and cuts it up into little pieces and assigns gray patterns to the levels of light and puts it into the Macintosh in a Mac Paint file format.
What would I...
And reference technology showed off a combined CD-ROM and magnetic storage system.
The dynamics of data.
One of the answers is that there's a fundamental confusion about the worth of their judgment. Some doctors would take pride in the fact that they were helping their patients by doing this calculation in their head, whereas no mathematician or engineer would ever design a bridge and say, I'm giving my client more of their money's worth because I designed the bridge in my head, rather than using the formulas which everyone agrees to apply. Now, some of the biochemistry here is very well understood, and there's no reason why that part shouldn't be handed over to the computer.
So you mean to suggest a document has AI, but they say that's artificial insanity, which may or may not have anything to do with artificial intelligence. Gary, seriously, on AI, this is one of those areas in which there have been so many promises, but apparently not that much delivery. Are there really any artificial intelligence products out there today? Environment only without the man.
Yeah, we make no bones about it. That's what we set out to do, and we did it.
Digital Systems has announced a new software broadcast service called Softcast. The company will distribute radio programs to over 1,000 stations across the country. The programs will include computer data, both software and text. The company plans to sell software over the radio network and to provide the first broadcast-based computer information service.
Well, I think what we're going to see is improvements really in three ways. The first is new classes of applications and products, and of course I'm not about to pre-announce anything, so I have to be somewhat circumspect about talking about that. But we're looking into areas of flexible databases, just certain kinds of decision support systems, programs that will help you to keep organized, help you to carry through rational processes that typically are easier for machines than for people. Reasoning aids.
We're out of time.
Where the snowflake, those are positions of the different snowflakes, and you turn them on and off, so to speak, by assigning them different colors.
Rodney, I want to move along to the next dimension now.
And that gave them an opportunity to come in here, reduce the price, come out with very good quality, and the world market that the American public bought it. What I'm trying to do is to come out with the best product, with the best quality, and also with the best price. And by doing
that's our Sherlock crime analysis system, and what we use that for is to do searches when you don't know a person's name or you don't know.
Legislators are eager to point out their genuine need for the system.
The encyclopedia behind Tim there, Grolier's Academic American Encyclopedia, which you claim you can squeeze onto that 4 3/4-inch disc. Did you do it?
Well, it's a text.
Not really my field. I'm a philosopher. I'm more interested in the limits of AI.
We'll start at the bottom end.
Okay. Well, I don't know about the fallouts. I'm on this show to find out about the fallouts.
Okay.
What I want to say is that you can't use what's called symbolic descriptions and rules and inferences to make computers intelligent like we are, which doesn't mean that you can't find many uses for them. And for that, that's not my job.
Now, what's the
They're just at the back of the crest of the wave, and we're hoped they're up on the cutting edge of the wave by the end of the year. We're seeing array printers being announced, and they should be out, we were told, of course, 4th quarter of this year. We hope certainly 1st quarter of next year to see some products from both the East and West Coast companies and from both the Japanese and American companies.
Real quickly, what's the...
It's not known, it'll stop. In fact, I've asked if an employee has a salary between the average Harvard man's and John's, do something, and it doesn't know the word man. At this point, I have a number of options. One of them is to teach the word, so I'll select teach. I'll select to teach it as a synonym, and now I'll say that man.
We were able then to identify the fact and pinpoint the fact that our prime suspect was, in fact, in San Antonio the night of the murder.
Since the printout is on transparent plastic, he can highlight certain aspects of each map and study them together in overlay.
This is very good for sitting back and reading a document, making sure the sentence text is correct. But when I get down to spelling errors and punctuation errors, I need to read it myself. I also use it for outputting computer manuals so that I have the documentation I need to do the evaluations.
Okay.
Yeah, the corner pub. That's where
I knew
people
you'd find the pub eventually. Huh?
We're going to move over, and we're going to clean up the desktop a little bit, as soon as the computer will allow me to do that. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to move a header week, and we're going to see, gee, what happens when we move a header week to the price of our stock? Before we do that...
How'd you do in the first week?
How do we do in the first week? And this is the beauty of Millionaire. What I can do is I can bring down my stock portfolio. I can show
corporations in 1985 in particular are not buying PCs in the quantities in which they used to. And the reason is that they've bought millions of them in the last 3 years, and they've greatly broadened the use of those PCs among their employees. And today they're focusing on how do they improve the productivity of that investment that they've already made. And so in that respect, hard card is a natural.
This is a phenomenon that happened around the Commodore 64, I believe, is that really there was an acceptance of a lower quality software. Do you think this is really true nowadays? Can you sell a computer into the home, Jack, and have it really, low quality software, or is it going to have to all be really good stuff?
Out of a laser printer and comparing it to what really comes out of a typesetter. Show us that.
Yes. On the right.
I think there's been enormous progress. It is interesting that the domain of medicine has been the area where a lot of artificial intelligence research in general has been directed. There are certain things about the domain of medicine which make it interesting for that work. I think what we're beginning to see now is that a lot of the work that was done in the last decade is being put to practical use to some degree, and that's very encouraging.
Now, your particular...
Down at the bottom here, and go into thesaurus, we can automatically look up meanings for the word simple. Notice that they're categorized in different meanings.
Well, good RGB monitors, maybe 2300 to 5600.
I see. Dave, what do you have up there now?
Accepted in newsrooms, but it's worked out well here, and now more and more stations.
The juices going in the morning.
Something like a cup of coffee for the normal person.
Yeah, for a cup of coffee from Santa Clara, California.
Okay, real quick.
Real quick.
Back market, though, as Dave mentions. I mean, is there a viable market there? You mentioned the new Amiga and the Atari 520 ST. I mean, is somebody going to buy those?
Yes.
Something that eventually would make it into a store so you could find the right kind of shoe based on your foot.
It could vary easily.
What Mac Paint does, only it does it in 16 colors and does it on a computer that costs a little bit less. Now what I've done here is chosen a palette of paint brushes. I get to choose.
Type, or you don't have to read. Now this is the menu that Sarah would have. It shows a bunch of different activities that she could choose. She can put pictures in top, middle, bottom order. She can choose, in this one you have weather conditions, and they can choose clothes to wear certain days. You can tell nature stories. You can figure out what goes on a calendar.
All of the features that are, I didn't mean to do that.
Well, it certainly makes it a lot simpler to use.
128 element prototype that we'll be looking at some output, some pressure output from.
Rick, would this be
this little thing called Easy Play? Then I can beat it.
Kathy, you went from Sargon to Sargon 2 to Sargon 3. What were the improvements? How is it a better chess game now?
Each edition of Sargon involved a total rewrite of the chess playing algorithm. Each version of the program had approximately a times 10 or better speed improvement.
The Computer Chronicles is brought to you in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Popular Computing, the magazine that gives readers an understanding of the technology and applications of microcomputers and software in office, home, and classroom.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is... We're going to begin a special two-part look today at the slowdown in the Silicon Valley. And on today's program, we're going to meet a venture capitalist, an industry analyst, a Silicon Valley business correspondent, and one of the nation's leading computer retailers. We're going to begin this program, though, with a background look at how this industry got to where it is today.
Silicon Valley's brief but tumultuous history is marked by unlimited optimism and brilliant innovations, bringing companies sudden success and frequent failure. At almost every level of legislative life, computers have arrived.
You can pull selected records, selecting on up to 10 different search criteria for determining which customers in the database to send the letter to. And as a matter of fact, as each letter is about to be printed, there will be one final pause on the screen showing me the customer and asking yes or no, would you like to send this one?
Okay, what's LEDs, which are on the first machines we looked at in the show?
Right. That's right. These displays use their own power. They chew up power to create light.
A bulletin board system here in the San Francisco Bay Area called The Well. And sitting next to Matthew Don Ingram, who is Assistant District Attorney for Alameda County across the Bay, and George Don has been involved in the prosecution of cases dealing with computer crime. Now, David, to confirm what you said about age, by the way, I'm a great Zork fan and into all your other stuff, unfortunately.
No matter what you type, nothing is going to happen.
Well, and this is go back.
The system that you saw from Texas Instruments a minute ago had you make selections from a menu of choices. That gave a great deal of control over what could be said.
The Japanese company Ricoh has introduced a fascinating new product called the Write Board. It's an electronic blackboard, it's actually white, that automatically captures whatever is written on the board and saves it in a computer. You can then display the blackboard's contents on CRTs at other locations or get hard copy printouts to keep a record of what was on the board. The Ricoh Write Board can handle graphics as well as text.
And maybe come in on, say, Monday.
Corey Grimm is 16 years old. She's also a graphic artist working at her mother's software company. Since the age of 10, she's used a joystick, a mouse, and an electronic palette to give form to her ideas.
Enter just a limited amount of descriptive information about a suspect.
That's right.
The Willard Scott of the Computer Chronicles.
Okay, Gary, I want to do one thing before we get on to what the other guys have here.
Yeah, that's right. And so we're going to say a vasoconstrictor. And this summarizes the findings on the program. This is a child between 12 and 18. The eye is red. The white part is pink or red. And the problem does happen again and again. And then
in a PC. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Now, in just a minute, we're going to take a look at a computer program that diagnoses eye disease. First of all, we're going to look at Puff, not a magic dragon, but a seemingly magic artificial intelligence program that analyzes lung disease. Wendy Woods reports.
They call it Puff. It works in the Pulmonary Function Lab at Presbyterian Hospital in San Francisco. It's a true expert AI system that diagnoses lung ailments. It's a task that's perfectly suited to a portable, since the news changes frequently, and he can update and add to his database as often as he likes with just a telephone call.
We didn't have a marketing organization breathing down our necks saying, you have to get this done in 3 weeks.
Finally, optical discs could present a serious challenge, offering 50 times the storage capacity of one 10-minute.
They're oriented toward girls in several ways. The characters is one way. The style of the graphics is another way. Our graphics draw at a rate that the eye can follow, which is very appealing. We tend to find that people lean into the computer when they first see our graphics rather than leaning away from the computer like they typically do with other software.
Can you show us an example of that?
Sure.
Once limited to mainframe monsters, the hard disk has become a desirable addition for PC owners. Early disk platters.
John here.
Yes, it does, because there are 2 Johns in the database that tells us about that. Now we can press a button and it pulls up a little display. If we know which John it is by name, we can just select it off. If we don't know, we can zoom in on the forms for this. This one makes 32,000.
Option, and there are also another option slot here available. And we think that value-added type applications where somebody will...
Right, a very common use of this device now by blind people is to get materials into Braille, for example. So they dump it into a computer and use a word processor such as I'm using now. I'm using Braille Edit, which is
that comes through expert systems as opposed to other programming techniques is what Jerry was talking about earlier, is the way that the system is programmed. In this particular case, the case of building rule-based expert systems, as they're called, the knowledge that goes into it is in the form of a collection of rules, the little pieces of information that chained together can build up to make decisions.
And these rules come from?
Visually, to go with the police lieutenants, police sergeants, and ask them to come up with a plan, how to deploy, how to deal with these crimes at the time when they're occurring, and look for the types of people that are doing them with some crime analysis information.
So this can be, this information...
To about 40, with a similar drop among software developers. While poor sales have led to curtailed predictions and a bleak outlook, the reasons for the slump are not clear. Macintosh owners are raving about the hyperdrive, an internal hard disk for the Macintosh that increases its speed by a factor of 3.
The game starts with a coin toss. You can choose to play another person or against the computer. The offense chooses from among 5 groups of 6 plays, while the defense chooses from among 5 groups of plays. Maybe you've heard of the overtwist, Willie. I haven't. Notice there's a time clock and a scoreboard on the view of the field. Then, each play is shown in X and O notation, followed by an instant replay. If you can't finish the game, you can store it and restart it later.
A little bit differently from what we've heard. AI, when it started out in the early 50s, was really a set of problems. How can we make computers reason? How can we enable them so we can talk to them or let them see? Or other problems like that that we recognize in humans that we do, and we associate that with intelligence. How can we take that same capability and put it into our artifacts, into our computers? Well, it's this range of problems that make up what is AI. We've developed a whole collection of technologies to address those problems. The natural language that I've demonstrated is one of the approaches.
To work with computers because this happens to be a way that you can play the game. So.
They identify
Lots of technology.
Okay,
What's
the
now, in the sense
technology-
of, let's take the sentence itself. Do you take it apart, parse it, figure out where the verbs and adjectives and so forth are?
No, what we do...
To press those buttons, how would that person use the input device?
Right. For instance, if someone were not able to use their hands at all, and quite a few of my clients have good head control. Sue will demonstrate that as well. But in this case, say someone's got good head control, they might be able to, make choices right off of this board.
People would be helped by using this kind of device.
Typically, the people that I work with that use this are individuals that have cerebral palsy, and they have limited fine motor control, but good gross motor control. So
Interactive Microware, which publishes it, and said, hey, I really appreciate you sending us the program, but it's not running on my Compact, and it does run on my XT. And the lady I talked to says, well, we were told to tell anybody who called that says it will not run with any of the software basics that have to be loaded, that they wrote the program using the ROM-based IBM BASIC, and if you don't have exactly that, it just will not run.
Crowd in your living room to yell Ghostbusters at the appropriate time, the machine will do that for you. Okay.
We, I guess in the past, have been worried about the reliability of disk drives. Now you're talking about packing it in tighter and putting more information in the same space. Is this going to affect the reliabilities? Do we have to worry again about head crashes and losing data and so forth?
Well, I believe...
Now, is the same. This is a low-end, high-end system based on expert system, not just a set of rules that somebody typed in here, but it's actually based upon a very well-tested and thought-out process of expert systems.
Medical history of the patient that carries this card. And you may think this is kind of something out of Star Trek, but it's not. It's being used right now by Blue Cross in the state of Maryland. I think it's one good example of how computer technology is being used in the medical field. And I would think, Gary, the computers could be used in a variety of ways in medicine.
That home application really hasn't been found yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Is this true? And I think that you'll find that in most throughout the computer industry, I use the 375 for personal computers, but you can say the same thing for all the peripheral devices, printers, disks. There's probably 3 to 4 too many players today. As that changes, the companies that survive will have lower cost manufacturing, will have methods of distribution. So I think in the long run, it is healthy for the industry, and all industries have gone through this. You look at the automobile industry, any of them historically have gone through such a
Computers are no longer immune.
Message that says, I don't know where I am. Would you please tell me where I am?
So this is programming compatibility, not incompatibility.
Yeah,
So you're running a word processor while you're carrying on this sound graphics demo.
And here it is, the exploits of Raoul Amundsen.
From this point, you can page back and forth, take a look at the article and things of that sort. Now, that's all in
Could soon become a fringe accessory as the vastly more powerful optical disc.
Yes, just a little more question, a few questions about the relational model again.
Sure.
Is this sort of taking over the industry as far as that the way that database systems are being built now as a relational model, or are there alternatives to that?
Well, there's certainly...
It's a shift at all during that time?
Yes, tremendously. In the sense that then I was very rare. Somebody would say, what do you do? And I'd say an electrical engineer, and they'd always say, well, you don't look like an electrical engineer.
Well, the complexity is I'll take that issue first. Basically, all this stuff is confusing, and it takes a lot of time working with manuals and trying to figure it out, particularly because most of the bulletin board systems are public domain software. They're not very well documented. So plan to spend a good deal of time. But for a modem and a computer and a second phone line coming into your house, the software is free. You can spend anywhere from $600–700 on up into enormous sums.
Ezra, now you
print it out on the laser printer, the HP laser printer, the Apple laser writer.
If it's one.
While office computers may have reduced the need for some paperwork,
Thelma, you're considered successful by any measure in computer science and engineering. And your daughter is certainly very successful with following your footsteps with advanced degrees in electrical engineering, computer science, a new company that she's formed, a very successful company. How did you manage to get into a field such as engineering at the time that you did?
Through that section of the encyclopedia, and we can point to the title we wish to examine.
So you're just pulling out that article now.
That's right.
George Morrow. George, our subject today is computer graphics, and that's a relatively new field. I know when I was a kid, the closest I ever got to computer graphics.
through the Assembly, the Senate, and the myriad committees. The system's new terminals display proposed amendments in the same way as the traditional paper document, but with the advantage of highlighting them in color.
Tell us about MacDraw here. How does it differ from MacPaint?
The basic difference between MacDraw and MacPaint is that MacDraw has a structured approach versus graphics, and that means that each object is regarded as a separate entity, and once it's designed on the screen, it can be manipulated at any time. And that allows a great use, first of all, in the business environment for presentations on one side, and due to its precision and accuracy, it allows further use in the technical area for architectural and engineering design.
It can glide and dive, shoot straight up in the air, and hover silently within inches from the ground. To tell you which ones are the best. For the average executive, this translates into a nightmare.
E2, E4 for a pawn move. Now you simply take this little cursor that looks like a crosshair.
Now look forward to accessing any database in the FBI from that car while he's driving it in real time.
The potentially infinite capacity of a cartridge-based system is one answer to the expanding taste for more and more data storage, but at a price.
Chuck, can you get the printer running here and just answer a couple of questions about things like speed, the cost of the machine, the cost of operation, things like that, so we can compare it with the other printers?
Sure.
So you're seeing a very early time slice, if you will, of when the person's heel comes in contact with the ground. The toes are still in the air.
There's no camera, there's no models.
All digitally created.
Digital computer created from the computer.
While the range of affordable machines has expanded, different features appeal to different kinds of customers.
I would say that the assembly of the computer is about 2% of the cost.
So I mean, it's just a couple of bucks.
And that's where Apple has received a patent on the process to go through the pull-down menu. Now, if patents like that are being approved, it may be the case that something like Top View, for example, the way that Top View interacts with a user may be patentable. Seems now, wouldn't that cause some real problems?
Well, Gary, I know that
So most people here have a technical degree of some sort, but a very, very strong background in the arts, and it can be any form of the arts. It can be filmmaking, animation, sculpture, photography, anything that has helped them to develop an aesthetic sense and also good three-dimensional visualization.
Let me make one point that I think I missed a minute ago that might be interesting. Tandy builds several families of computers. The IBM compatibles or the MS-DOS machines are just one family. We also build a multi-user system which uses Xenix, and we have our own 8-bit. The reason we brought out DeskMate, which is really it's a combination of about 6 different applications.
That caliber drive has some sort of business use for it.
Bob, any idea where this all... Well, we're going to see some pretty sophisticated games. We're going to meet the premier chess programmer, Kathy Sprecklin of Sargon. We'll meet one of the hottest new games, Millionaire. We'll go into the mysteries of the new adventure games. And you know, the graphics demands of new computer games are so great that programmers are now turning to the animators who used to work for Disney. We have a report.
The art of animation grew up alongside the early motion picture industry. Based on storyboards, character development, and a detailed script, it was a repetitive and time-consuming process. But today, much of the task can be computer-assisted, and that has great potential for the computer game field. This game designer...
As of late, our product is getting acceptance in the Fortune 1000 companies, companies like Eastman Kodak, AT&T, GE have purchasing Macs and hyperdrives in small numbers, evaluating them as an alternative to the IBM personal computer standard.
Deluxe Paint is up here and running, so...
Is that one of EA's new products for me?
Right, Deluxe Paint is the first...
Is president of Capital Data Communications, and next to Roger Frank Toby, president of Bealo, Toby & Associates, both these gentlemen involved with two of the leading companies in the use of computer technology in politics, Gary.
The weather, currency exchange, special events, and special bargains then become available to other travelers almost immediately.
This computer captures a still frame photo of a woman. It analyzes the skin tones, then allows the operator to apply various cosmetics to the subject's face electronically with a...
Off day, for example, and he was missing one particular stroke.
Right, then he can know to attack that more.
I mean, what does that do to the industry if the object is to simply advertise everything as being exactly like an IBM?
Here's a sample page from a book that I'll put in the Kurzweil machine, and we'll see how it reads that page. And in just a second, Sue, you can go.